Hello everyone, welcome to Janus Academy. This is going to be a short introductory video about what we do, how we decided to do it, who we are, etc. What is our mission? So I would like to begin by presenting myself. My name is Boris Petrovic, PhD. I finished the University of General Literature and Literary Theory in Belgrade. Then I came to Paris, where I studied at Université Sorbonne. We called it Paris 4 back in the day. It's the old Sorbonne, as it was before it got divided, after 1968. So in the meantime, they've changed its name to Paris Sorbonne, but, for us that went there, it's always going to be Paris 4, Paris 4. Anyhow, I've studied there. I've acquired the title of Master 2. And after that, I acquired the title of PhD. I defended my doctoral thesis in December of 2014. It's been a while. And I specialized in the field of mythology, myth making, more specifically nationalistic myth making in Western and Yugoslav partisan cinema. So things that interest me as a researcher are really, well encapsulated in the title of the thesis, which was National Myth Making in John Ford and Veljko Bulajic films. So you could say that it was a pluridisciplinary approach where I analyzed these films basically as rehashing of the biblical narrative. So although it doesn't really state as much in the title of my doctoral thesis, most of what I was doing was studying the Bible. So I investigated the Old Testament quite thoroughly because the main hypothesis that I was defending in my thesis was that both of these directors, and more broadly speaking, Western and Yugoslav partisan cinema inspired themselves with Old Testament. Not only narratives, but also imagery, symbolism, archetypes, all of those things. So you could say that this was a continuation of my already existing interest in biblical exegesis, and this is something I've done before I enrolled into doctoral thesis, and this is something I continued doing after I finished it, after I defended it. So what I'm really interested in, and this is something that will shine through, all of the videos we make, is biblical exegesis, is Mediterranean syncretism. I will explain what it is, down the road. Is really the history of ideas, and I think this is something that we'll deal with a lot. Possibly the most. Now, officially, if you will, the channel is dedicated to history of art. We'll be talking about works of art a great deal, and we'll be talking about what art is, how it manifests itself, how it communicates certain things. This is something that I always find interesting in terms of history of ideas, that art basically vehicles them, so there isn't a work of art in this world that would not do this. Regardless of how you look at art, you can take many different approaches, you can analyze it from many different perspectives using different methodologies, but, a work of art, be it a painting, be it a statue, be it a photography, a film, or a piece of literature, because that's some kind of art as well, it always carries not only an idea, but a system of ideas. And this is something that I've dedicated a lot of my time to, and I intend to do that. And I intend to share all of that with you. Now, you could say that I will probably talk about, the state of current academia, somewhere down the road. But what I wanted to do with Janus Academy, the reason why I called it Academy to begin with, was to create something, that begins as a YouTube channel. We're at the very inception of it in the month of January, very adequate. But it grows. My ambition for this whole project is to grow it enough so that it can become an online university. This is the end goal. I mean, I can kind of hope, realistically or optimistically to achieve this down the road, I think 3 or 5 years from now, once we build up enough of a curriculum. But yeah, I just wanted to say from the very beginning that this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm interested in. I want this to be an online university where all of the things we cover, all of the courses we offer will be available. So, if you have some experience with, online courses, with online presence of different universities, you probably saw that they only give you a fraction of their entire curriculum. So I will take as an example, Yale online courses. They have a very good YouTube channel. They have a very good website as well where you can see all of their videos. They have really interesting lectures, obviously excellent professors that have a very good take on things, but they only give you a fraction of what they offer to their students. And this is a thing, you can get 1 or 2 lectures from history of art, you can get 1 or 2 lectures, from literature. You can never get the complete thing. You can never go and see all of the courses that you would need to take to, let's say, get a diploma of, Bachelor of Arts or Masters of Arts or, PhD, God forbid. So my intent is to do something different. I want to offer all of the courses that we have, to make them broadly available. And even before, we get the capacity to actually issue diplomas, we hope to get there eventually, I want the knowledge to be made available. And, this is something that I want to discuss at the very beginning, of our initiative before I actually upload any of the courses, is that knowledge, as we have it today, is very different from the world, in its current state. So you could say that university really is a medieval institution. I mean, the way we have it today. We, of course, had, different universities from different parts of the world. We didn't necessarily call them universities, we call them different names. The name I adopted obviously come from famous Plato's Academy that was situated in the grove of Academ, one of the local heroes, of Athens. So you could say that, his disciple Aristotle had his own school. They were called different things, not to get into that, but the institution of university, academia, as we're talking about it today, really is very much medieval, and it has to do with Western European medieval period. Now you could say that this medieval initiative was drastically altered in the 19th century during the French Revolution, after the French Revolution, and especially in the context of the Industrial Revolution, right? So we've had this medieval institution be adapted to necessities of the industrial society. Now, we still live in an industrial society. This is something that we'll talk about a lot as well. But the mode of production has changed. We're no longer expected to work in factories. I mean, a good deal of us. We have desk jobs. We work in front of computers rather than, in front of heavy, bulky machines. So we still have, very much 19th century academia that is facing a lot of challenges, that is facing a lot of issues. I mean, academia has gathered a lot of criticism, in the last couple of decades. Some of them justified, some of them not. We are facing, a great onslaught of anti-intellectualism. People question the whole idea of, getting a university education to begin with. And especially if you come from an Anglophone part of the world, where a lot of universities are paying, and a lot of them are private, and a lot of them are incredibly costly, people are asking the question, like, why do we need to pay, hundreds of thousands of dollars or euros or whichever other currency, to get an education that has very dubious, utility, that will not necessarily help us fare better in life, And so my idea is to basically offer everything I can, everything I've acquired, during my own education, out there in the open, mostly for free. We will have a Patreon where you can, help the initiative if you want to, and we will probably have some courses that are only available on Patreon. But my idea is that, the courses that you would need to acquire a diploma, like the core courses, what is most important, will be available. So this is how I want to do it, and we'll see if I'm successful in that attempt. Now, I want to say a couple of words of why I chose Janus for a name. So, as I already said, a lot of my studies was in the field of myth, although my particular penchant is the Bible and how Bible came to be. Through the process of Mediterranean syncretism, if you study the Bible long enough, you come to understand that it's a composite that's made out of many different contributions, that we can see fragments of, Babylonian culture, Egyptian culture, Greek, Roman, etc. So it's, very syncretic, and the very word syncretism means that it's assembled from many different parts that are all aligned, towards a certain goal. And this is how it's different from eclecticism, which is just assembly of many different parts, but without, specific orientation. So if you study the Bible again, you understand that, you have to know about these other, surrounding cultures that are very influential in the creation of the Bible. The Persian Empire, Greece, Hellenistic Empire, of course, the Roman Empire, etc. So it kind of goes without saying that then if you study myth and mythical narratives, that you will deal a lot, with Greco-Roman cultural context, Greek myth and Roman myth. And so I chose the god Janus to name this entire initiative because Janus is the god protector of the month January. This is the month of, when the new year begins. Back in the day, the new year began in March for the Romans. We'll talk about that more. Then eventually they decided to move it to January. So you could say that Janus is a god with two heads. He has two faces, one head, two faces. One face looks forward, the other one looks backward, so he has a face, in the back of his head. So this is the god that communicates with present and future with his front face, and with past with his back face. So he exists in all these different realms, different temporal realms, and he is also the god of passages. January is the month of beginnings. Janus is the god of doors as well as of month of January. So he is the god that protects and deals with all of the portals. When you go through a door, this is a symbolically important act. You leave something behind, you enter something or you exit something, you're changing realms. So this is an interesting thing. It's also a curiosity that Janus was not taken from the Greek pantheon like many of the Roman gods have been taken. So he was, an originally Italian invention, if you will. He has a very strong counterpart, not counterpart, really a model rather, from the Etruscan culture, that he was likely based upon but he is not Greek in origin. He is, you could argue, locally grown. This is another reason why we opted for it. And then, of course, there's the banal reason that I was born in January. So there you go. I feel personally involved. So the videos that we're going to be publishing on this channel are going to be divided into categories. And all of these categories are going to be like university lectures. The format of those is going to be around an hour. Now, I cannot promise that every lecture will be, exactly an hour. Sometimes it will be a bit shorter. Sometimes it will be a bit longer. But you get the point. The hour is like the mark that we're going to try to attain. I chose 1 hour as duration because when I, studied myself back in Belgrade, we had lectures that lasted for 2 hours. In theory. In fact, they were always an hour and a half because the professor would always come 15 minutes later. And then we had a break in between that lasted for 15 minutes. So effectively, it was an hour and a half. And here in Paris, when I studied at Sorbonne, we would have a straight 2-hour block, no interruption, no pause. I found that to be quite brutal. And I found that to be quite difficult to follow unless professors were amazingly interesting. Some of them have been, some of them have not, but not to get into that. So I think that, when you attain a university class in person, there's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of little pauses, professors get carried away by a certain thought. They chat with students, and there's always some time left in the end for questions to be asked, for discussions to be raised, which, is a very useful and a great part of the whole thing. I think that if we want to adapt this format to YouTube, we have the comment section for that, so for discussions and everything. And I, heartily invite everyone to participate in this. I very much look forward to reading the comments. So the reason why I chose, a format of an hour is that to me, hour and a half was, just right. 2 hours was a bit too much. It's, I think, an hour, if you take away, the chit chat, if you take away, the jokes, like the little natural pauses, you get when you present, I think you get it to an hour because, I don't get to engage with people during these. I basically talk for an hour. And I think roughly the amount of info I get to share in an hour of this format is very much comparable to the amount of info that was shared in an hour and a half or 2 hours. So this is how I got to have this format. You will see that lectures, videos, will be divided into categories, and some categories will have 12 entries, 12 to 14. We'll see how that goes. Some will have 26 and some will have 52. Now, this is basically done following the example of semesters. You get an academic year of 2 semesters. One first semester is always a bit shorter than the second one. And if you think about 2 semesters, this is roughly comparable to 26 classes. If you think about 4 semesters, it's comparable to 52. So when we have courses, here there will be 52 videos. This is like a 4 semester, comparable to 2 years course spent at the university, or a full year course that is 26, or a 1 semester course that is 12. So we will cover different topics. We will cover, history of ideas, myth, something that is very close to me and something that I'm most, able to talk about, something that I've, becoming an expert in. I have roughly 20 or so years, a bit more actually. I have to constantly remind myself of my age. So it's not 20, it's rather 25, closer to 25 now, years of combined research into this topic. And you will see that much like is the case with many university lectures, there's a fine line between, a hard line and very, very applied scientific approach that you have to use when you're publishing articles, when you're, presenting at conferences. You have to substantiate what you say by, quotations, by references. So you have to be very disciplined in this manner. When you're writing an article, it's not quite the same thing as when you're presenting. When you're presenting, when you're talking about a certain topic, you can allow yourself a bit more freedom. You don't have to always address a specific quotation. You don't always have to say, which book, this particular notion came from. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I think I want to go with the more liberal approach in this account. I, will probably make an effort to make a list, of quotations that I used in a specific lecture, but I don't think that's necessary. And one of the reasons why I don't think it's necessary, in this format is that I think it invites people to do their own research, and this is kind of the main thing. If you go to a university, no matter what you study, the best part about it is that you get curious, so you don't only study the curriculum of the university, but you get to do your own research. You get curious about a certain topic, and then you decided to go deep in it, and you do your own thing. And sometimes when you do your own thing, you understand that what your professors told you was not necessarily accurate, or not that they've made, grievous material errors. That sometimes happens too. But, sometimes the conclusions they reached were not the best, especially if you deal with type of study that is not, from the domain of hard sciences, that doesn't come from the domain of physics or something similar, natural sciences where 2 + 2 is always 4, and there's not really a space to discuss it. In the domain of social sciences, that's not always the case, and there are always ways of interpreting or understanding or spinning things in the end. So nothing is as clear and as stable as is the case with the realm of hard sciences. And this is something that makes the whole thing sometimes frustrating, but in most other times very interesting. It invites a different type of philosophical discipline and academic rigor. So the whole idea is that I would like to just say it, blatantly open and in advance. I will probably make some mistakes as I speak. This is a normal thing. I remember one of my professors back from Belgrade who made a whole fit, in one of his lectures, otherwise a great professor, whom I remember dearly, that he would not be recorded, as he presents. Now, this was, an official university lecture, all of it. And his fit was addressed at myself, because I came with a digital camera. that I was using for something completely else, and I placed this digital camera on the table where he could see it. And he thought that this camera had the capacity to record, and he was like, I'm not going to be recorded, because if I say something stupid, or if I, say something that's downright wrong, it's going to be, preserved for posterity, and then someone will be able to take me to court with it. I mean, he was obviously exaggerating, but regardless. And this is exactly what I'm doing, right? I'm presenting recorded so that it's there for posterity. When I make mistakes, it's going to be there for everyone to see. It's just a part of the process. I don't think I'm going to make a big deal of it. People will correct me in the comment section if they want to, and that's fine. I welcome that. I actually think it's even better that way, because this makes it more collaborative, and this makes it more, participative. So I want people to partake, and I want this to be a communal thing, First couple of courses will be given by myself. I hope to be able to bring a lot of the colleagues, from my studies and the people I've met, in conferences and scientific gatherings that I've partook in, over the previous years and even decades. So I hope to have people, give their own entire courses. I know some experts in their respective fields whom I appreciate immensely, and I would be, greatly honored to have them, partake in this initiative. But this is something that will come down the line eventually, probably for the first year or so, perhaps a bit more. We'll see. It will most likely be me, talking about things that I find interesting and useful. Now, another thing that I want to add is that I have a peculiar situation, in my life, professional and to a certain extent personal, is that I work as a tour guide. So I'm a seriously overqualified tour guide. And this is a very interesting topic. We can dedicate an entire courses, to it. So I'm just going to skim over it really briefly. Is that I know a lot of tour guides that have PhDs. They're, academic citizens. They're dedicated to research, but they, were unable to find position in academia, or they just preferred, the open, wild world of the streets, rather than, academic corridors and dusty medieval institutions. Some of them were not able to find a position. Some of them openly preferred, the liberty that comes with this most precarious lifestyle. Not to get into all of that, the fact is that I have been working as a guide for 13 years now, from the moment when we are, recording this. This is January 2025. So I have a considerable, amount of experience in this domain as well. And a lot of, the reason why I started working as a tour guide to begin with, why I founded the company Paris in Person Private Tours, is that I like history of art a lot. I like visual arts a lot. I like anything, graphic and plastic and visual. I like drawing. Not that I'm any good at it, but, I love it still. And it's just a personal passion, if you will, that I turned into, a profession. So a lot of the courses will be, of course, influenced, if not shaped, by this fact, that I spend a lot of my time in museums. I spend a lot of my time around buildings. I talk about works of art from that particular point of view. So I have two lanes, if you will, in which I operate. One of them is touristic, where I present things in a very approachable manner. The other one is academic, where I apply, a considerable amount of rigor and philosophical discipline when I'm producing an article, a scientific article or a chapter for a book, or any of the other things, when I go to the conference. So these, of course, come together, they influence one another. It's a fact that, a lot of my tours are, not, if not all of them, very nerdy, and if you go to my page, my website, you can see that the explanation is that, we make our tours for the people who are very inquisitive, very curious, who want to learn a lot. And that one of the things I hold very dear and important is that my tours are really on an academic level, meaning that they're quality of a university lecture. So I never had a, lecturer dispute this. I had a lot of professors, as clients on my tours. They always, agreed, though I never had an official certificate. This is just my ambition, this is how I wanted it to be. And this is what I'm trying to do. If I'm successful or not, it's for the other people to say. But yeah, so you could say that Paris in Person Private Tours is the company that I started, that's been around for 12 years now. And that, of course, we have a connection with that company. I give those tours often, myself personally. And yeah, this is something that will definitely be involved in what we do here. And yeah, I hope you guys will enjoy this. I hope you will find it useful. I'm very happy to start my own YouTube channel. We'll see how it goes. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you in